Good morning, everybody. Oh, wow, it definitely is Thursday. Good morning. There we go. Is everyone having a good VMworld? The end of the day, finally get to go home. Yay. And for those of you who are flying back to Texas, hopefully there's something there. I've already talked to a few people. They've got 17 inches of water to deal with. Yikes. All right. Well, my name is Linus Bork. I am a principal instructor with VMware Education. I've been with VMware 12 years now, and I have basically been in charge of everything that relates to end-user computing. And in particular, this little product that started off as a product called the VDM, and its original name. It has since been renamed I don't know how many times, and is now currently called Horizon. And so we're going to take a look at some of the troubleshooting techniques that we can use to troubleshoot it, as well as the top 10 list from GSS as the main issues that they are seeing today. And it may surprise you what the number one issue actually is. One of the things that we do need to sort of remind ourselves is sort of, this is a pointer, yes? We'll skip the pointer. Always troubleshoot something, right? So the first thing is to figure out what an actual problem is. And sometimes we may think it's an obvious thing, but sometimes maybe not so obvious. Who here has ever had this conversation with an end user? The end user comes to you and gives you a laptop and says, it's slow, right? And it's like, okay, but what does slow mean? I've actually had this from when I used to be an IT admin. I say, well, what does slow mean? Well, it takes 3 seconds longer to boot. I'm like, that's the antivirus. You go get a coffee or something. 3 seconds is nothing, right? So sometimes we have to sort of determine from what I call fuzzy terms and turn it into something that actually that's meaningful. And from that, we can usually figure out roughly where the idea might be or the issue might be. Our system problems themselves usually fall into one of 5 categories. The first category is configuration. And that, I'm a big culprit of that one. For whatever reason, I don't read documentation. I just install it and hope that it works, right? Documentation usually helps us deal with those configuration issues because if we read the documentation, it would tell us, don't do this instead, right? So sometimes we might miss a particular step or something, and that's usually where that comes into play. Resource contention. Virtualization is great. We do lots of amazing things with it. But the reality is we only have so much memory, so much CPU, so much disk, and so much network, right? And so at some point, if we try to put, yes, I could put 1,000 machines onto a system, but if that system's only got 92 gigs of memory and 2 CPUs, it's going to suck, right? So let me fight for resources. Software bugs or interoperability. Now, VMware does great software, but it is coded by humans. They do make mistakes, and bugs happen, right? So we sometimes have to deal with those. Hardware failures and compatibility. Over the last 5 years, hardware has become, almost near indestructible. But sometimes we get the lemons every now and again, the bad memory chip or the bad CPU, we have to deal with those things. I left the last one, network attacks, to the end. Those ones are probably going to be the ones that are going to be causing us the most problems in the coming years. We've always had network attacks, but the scope and scale that we're starting to see a lot of this stuff and things like the WannaCry and the ransomware type of stuff is becoming more and more commonplace. And since we're hugely networked on a lot of our stuff, it became more impactful. I did have one customer, they said, yeah, we got hit by WannaCry. And I said, oh, so how bad was it? He says, I'll actually tell you. He says, I'm really thankful we're using link clones because all we had to do is refresh and poof, it was gone. He says, I just had to deal with all the servers that got impacted on the network. And I'm like, we have this product called NSX, right? And he laughed. He says, yes, I know. We're working on that too. So that's one that I suspect we're going to see a lot more activity over the next few years, and it's going to cause us some pain. Some of the stuff that you saw here, and in particular, the one that really made me go, ooh, was the app defense, right? That's going to be really cool. So let's take a look at how we define the problem and figuring out the symptoms of it. So if we have a symptom like, poor virtual desktop performance, if someone came to you and said, yeah, this desktop sucks as a virtual machine, what would you first look at to address the issue? Anybody? Sorry? Resource allocation, yeah. How much memory, how much whatever. What else would you look at? What applications they're using. Anything else? VROPs? Yeah, use VROPs. Maybe you can tell me what's going on. Interesting enough, though, if you call VMware, do you know what the first question that support will ask you? What? Before that, especially when it comes to VM performance in the desktop environments. Well, in this case, will be their first question. Did you optimize the image? We have an optimization tool. If you haven't seen it, one of the last screenshots I have, it'll show you where to find it. If you're doing virtual desktops with Horizon, every image, your master, your gold master, whatever you want to call it, should be optimized. Right? Makes a big difference. Unable to provision or recompose VMware View desktops. Where would you look for that? Connection broker, right, yeah. Let's take a look at connection server. See what the error is. See if there's any more details there. What could possibly prevent Composer from creating link clones? Oh yeah, whole lot of stuff. One of my favorite ones that's been coming up recently is people have been deleting the snapshot that's associated to the pool or renaming it. Sorry? One of them in chain. Yeah, if you have too many, Composer, as one support person put it to me, Composer loses its little mind and it can't find itself. Right? So if you have more than 5, it gets a little lost in the process. Right? Maybe the database is corrupted. Or maybe it's just the wrong password. Right? Trying to do custom image. You don't have enough IP addresses, that can cause that as well. Who here has had this one? Black screen. I expected to see a lot more hands. We actually have a whole bunch of KBs on this in the knowledge base article. It's a well-known issue. The most common issue, whenever I hear someone say to me, yeah, I got a black screen, how do I deal with it? My first question to them is, have you looked at your firewalls? Right? Because that has always been historically the number one cause of it. Right? Today we see other things that are causing the same thing, because if you take a look at the actual connection for a desktop, when we talk about Horizon, the first part of the connection is the authentication, desktop selection, desktop assignment. The second part is the actual display from the desktop to the endpoint client. And that's what's being prevented from happening. So port blocking means I can't send any data through. Now it could also be a case where my desktop is set to 800 by 600, but the actual client system is this huge 50-foot monitor. And I'm trying to display something that's really tiny on something that's really large, right? And that's where we get something like this. Black screen, but we don't have enough video memory, right? The default setting is, I think if you have 2 monitors, 10 whatever by whatever, is something like 3 megs of memory for video. That's really tiny, right? So sometimes bumping that up can make a huge difference, right? Changing resolution can make a difference. So all of those types of things. But I went through this because I wanted to remind you that sometimes what we assume is a symptom, or what we think is a problem, is in fact actually a symptom of what the actual problem is, right? Now, some things to remember, and this is, I know all of you have called support at one point or another. When I used to be in support, this is always the first questions we tended to ask. Is everything on the compatibility list? Have you checked the interoperability list? And so on, right? Let's get rid of those checkboxes first. Right? That's easy. Once we've gotten those, gives us a place to start from. Then we want to get more information. Now the more information stuff, these are stuff that you've probably done throughout your careers. Right? A common one, and I've had a customer who came on our Tuesday session, and he asked me about an issue, and I said, can you reproduce it? He says, no. He says, support tried it, they can't do it. And I said, so there's something very specific to your desktop that's causing this particular problem. And so here are some ideas to try. And he's actually going to let me know whether they worked or not. Right? So can I reproduce the problem itself? Or is it unique to your location or the end user's location? Right? I get that sometimes too. People say to me, yeah, this end user, every time they connect in, it sucks. Well, where are they connecting from? Home? Did you have them go to Starbucks and see if they get the same issue? Because it could be the internet provider. Right? There's things that we don't control. What's the scope? I know all of you have had this, where the end user calls in and says, everyone is being affected by this. You have to fix it now. When they are, in fact, the only person being impacted by this, right? I mean, unless the power is out on their floor, it likely is probably just them. Yeah, well, you're going to have to jump anyways, yeah. Yeah, if the manager or the CEO says, yeah, everyone's being impacted by this, you have to fix this now, yeah, you're going to have to deal with it. It's not to say don't fix it, but knowing the true scope of it does tell you whether or not the issue is unique to that individual, or is it something that's happened to everyone? Because if it's happened to everyone, then that tells me it's possibly something in the image itself and not something at the endpoint. Right? Yeah, there's any possibilities, right? But knowing that scope helps me determine where I need to start looking. Right? And last one, is the problem a known issue? This is where your Google foo comes in handy. Right? Do searches for it. If you do a search for PCORP black screen, you'll find all the KBs that relate to it. And there are a lot. Last time I checked, I think there was about 18 of them. It's very significant, which means we've seen this a lot, right? That saves you from calling us. If you go through all those KBs, you still have the issue, then call us. But save your time from sitting there for 4 hours on the phone waiting for the TSC type thing, right? Once you got the root cause, determine how impactful it is, find a solution, resolve the problem, and the last one is the most important one. This is a problem we have in IT, right? This is a known issue, right? Oh, we'll document it tomorrow. No. Document it then. Tomorrow never happens, right? You figure, I'll document tomorrow when I have more time. No, if you don't have time today, you're probably not going to have time tomorrow because you've got 18 new problems to deal with tomorrow, right? Take 2 minutes, make it short point if you have to, just something, right? So that you have a reference to go back to if it appears again. You can at least eliminate that fairly quickly then. One of the things that can help you, especially if you have a Tier 1 or Tier 2 support team that helps you troubleshoot some of this stuff, is creating what are known as logic charts or logic scripts, waterfall type stuff, right? This is the one we created for black screen. So if I can create a script or some type of pathing that can help when it comes to trying to troubleshoot something, that can help eliminate all those things. Because if you look at Horizon, you have Horizon itself, and then you have the vCenter server, you have vSphere, you have your data stores, you have the Active Directory, you have the desktops, you have the client endpoints, and so on, and so on, and so on. That's a lot of places to potentially look. Let's start eliminating those things and narrow it down to as few things as possible. That way, when it comes to troubleshooting, you have a lot easier of a scope to look at, right? All right, so let's take a look at the top 10. At number 10, RDP. I was like, really? Someone's still using RDP as a protocol? Okay. So they're complaining about mouse and screen behavior. Some of this we can't fix because RDP is just, here's the whole screen all the time, right? If their network sucks, this is going to suck. So some of it we can fix, some of it we can't. RDSH. In this particular case, what they were finding is that set up an RDSH pool, people would connect, and then get disconnected. In this particular example, we discovered that order of install of the agents was the problem. Right? Remember, tools, Horizon, User Environment Manager, App Volumes. Do not install tools on top of any of those agents. In fact, the order is so specific, we actually created a KB on how to do the install order. Excuse me. Performance issues. That's a fuzzy one, right? That's actually the area, especially when I was in support, that I looked after. Performance issues can be anything from an unoptimized image to poor network, old tools, anything like that, right? So anything could possibly cause those ones. Those tend to take a longer time to resolve. If they're configuration issue, we can usually hit them pretty quickly, but true performance issues, they can take a couple of months to actually get through them because we have to try a whole variety of things. And particularly if it's an application-specific one, because some applications can be really picky about what they do. So USB scanner redirection. This has been one that's sort of on and off the charts over the years. USB overall, we've gotten better with it. We've improved the USB drivers, but excuse me. There's about 100,000 plus devices out there, and we don't have the code for all of it. So it's very possible that you find a device that we've never seen before, and how they interpret the USB standard is maybe not quite the way they should interpret it, right? So as much as we try, oh no, I'm okay. I'll be fine. It'll settle down. As much as we try to actually truly get all the USB devices, every now and again, especially some of those point of sale scanners, they don't always play with us, right? So if you do find a scanner that doesn't play well, please call us right away. That way we can get R&D involved, and they can address the issue, and then maybe we'll give you a fix in the meantime. Number 6, persona. Who here is using persona management? Still a few of you. So persona management is what I like to call roaming profiles on steroids, right? Really, that's really all it is. If you can, oh, thank you very much. You may want to consider upgrading to Horizon Enterprise 7, where you get User Environment Manager, which is far more robust. But there are limitations to what Persona Manager can do, and a lot of the issues they found were usually related to poor design as far as storage was concerned. Right? They either put the storage too far, they didn't replicate it properly, didn't do the GPOs properly, and so on. Number 5, oh, that looks familiar. Black screens, right? An ongoing challenge. Again, and we have a lot of KBs for that one. Composer problems. A lot of these are sort of tied to what number 1 is, so I'm going to be very careful about what I say. But database corruption was one. Deleting replicas when there's a live pool there, right? Big no-no. These types of things. Number 3 and number 2 are sort of related because it's external to internal, right? So access points and the security servers, misconfigurations on those, not choosing the right access point for Horizon versus what have you. And you'll notice a note that we put there that the Unified Access Gateway version 3 was so new at the time when I asked them the question, they didn't have enough tickets to say that it's a potential issue, but they sort of rolled it in there for the few that they had. So a lot of it was around misconfiguration of the actual access points. So what do you think number 1 is? Anybody? Load times. Infrastructure?
Printers.
What?
Printers.
Printers. You know what? In all the years I've done it, surprisingly, printers never made the top 10, which has always surprised me. But this year, it was certificates, right? And I know the exact issue that probably caused the spike in certificates. It was that wonderful update that they did, and they put very down to the bottom. By the way, this might impact other VMware products that use this, and they got rid of the SHA-1 out of it. And of course, everyone's like, well, wait, why is the vSphere team updating? Wait, the whole environment stopped. What are you doing, right? So we do have some papers. I do have a screen that gives you some good reference papers. They've updated them significantly for certificates, but a lot of it was misconfigured certificates, not the right names, and all of this kind of stuff. So those are the top 10. So speaking of number 1, or certificates, a few hints to help avoid that being your number 1 issue. The certificate guide, if you want to take a picture of this so you have the link right away. Remember to replace the self-signed certificates on the environment. If it's a test environment or a POC, you shouldn't care about it, but definitely for your production type of environment, replace the certificates. What do I need to rename the certificate to on my connection server? What's the friendly name that has to be renamed to? I heard it, VDM, yes. You must do that. And I think that's actually a step a lot of people miss when they do certificates. The SVI config for the Composer tool, you use that to get the certificate in there. And then you can also use the automation tool for vCenter. And as I mentioned, renaming that self-signed certificate. When it comes to troubleshooting certificates for Horizon, one thing to keep in mind, the certificates have to be at Windows 2003 compatibility or higher, right? Make sure your key is exportable. That's really key. That's important, especially if you're using Microsoft CA, that's a checkbox easily missed, right? Don't forget that little checkbox to do that one. And speaking of the Microsoft CA, make sure your DNS is sound, both forward and reverse lookups within the environment. If you do have certificate issues, what you're going to see as far as behavior, you'll get 404 pages, and you'll also get, the service will likely not start, especially on the connection server. If it has the wrong certificate, we can't start the service. So if you see that type of behavior, then you need to take a look at your certificates. Likely something's happened there. 2 KBs at the bottom will help with troubleshooting your certificates themselves. So 203-2400 and 206-866-8666 are the 2 main KBs for taking care of your certificates in your environment. So some of our common issues in a general sense, ways to help troubleshoot your environment. Where do you look? Well, the first place you can look is the dashboard. We made it easy. We have green, yellow, and red. There's actually a 4th color, which you might not see that often, which is gray. Gray means Horizon's like, I have no idea what it is, right? But the other 3 are pretty easy. Green, everything's good. Yellow, well, there might be a problem, but we're not sure how bad it is. Red, it's broken, right? Although, interestingly enough, if you have a connection server with self-signed certificates, it will show up red, will still work. R&D made it red because they felt it was such an important or serious consideration. They wanted people to pay attention to it. And fair enough, right? Understanding your client connection paths. Understanding how your clients are connecting into the environment is really important. If they're on your LAN, that's fairly straightforward. It's when they're coming from outside your environment inside. And all the things between your endpoint or your demarcation point from where they are to that demarcation point are stuff you can't control, right? I've had environments, the user complains it's slow. Well, what's their connection? 56 baud modem. Yeah, that's going to suck no matter what protocol you use, right? Even here in the US, I have people that are using satellite dish. Now, I know Hughes is one of the bigger ones out there, and they provide some really good stuff, but there's a lot of people who are cheap about their internet, right? Or they're like me. I try it up on an airplane at 38,000 feet in the air. When I used to do it, no problem. Now if I try it, yeah, not so much, because apparently all 200 other passengers have figured out there's Wi-Fi too now, right? So I'm going to fight with them for the bandwidth. Make sure your logging level is appropriate, right? Leave it at default unless there's a problem. And then when you turn on your logging to a higher level or more in depth, do it for a short period of time. And one poor guy, he forgot that he left it at verbose. 2 days later, his connection server stopped because he'd filled the storage that the connection server was on, right? So watch for that. Do it for a short period of time, 6 hours, just enough to capture that issue. And once you've captured that, return the logging level back to its default, right? Use the DCT tool to help collect those logs, and even take a look in community. See if anyone else has run into that, or kb.vmware.com. How many people here are on View 5? View 6? Or Horizon 6? A couple of you. How many are on 7? 7, okay. So 7.0? 7.1? 2? Okay. So those of you who are on 7.2, this is already baked in. I think it was actually 7.1 that got baked in. Those of you who are on earlier versions, you download this from the flings. labs.vmware.com/flings. And I'll explain what those are if you've never seen it before. This help desk tool was created to help you be able to troubleshoot your Horizon environment a little bit easier. It's really nice. You can drill down to see what users are using, what sessions they have, etc. But what's really cool is this part. This is the part I like the most, because I can have a quick glimpse as to my resources. I can even track logins, what's going on in the logins, what GPOs are being loaded, what processes are being loaded. So users complaining about login times, hey, I can take a look and see what's actually happening at that login, right? And try and troubleshoot those types of things. So we get metrics. We have the send message option. One of the neat things that was brought into this was the remote assist. It's kind of like shadowing. So you can use remote assist with PC over IP and Blast. I will tell you that we are working on a shadowing feature in Blast itself to be native. When that will come out, I have no idea, but I know that it's being worked on, because they know that's actually an important ask that we've had from customers. So fingers crossed, hopefully we'll see it at some point. All right, but from this tool, this help desk tool, I can actually see a lot of what's in my environment and be able to use that to help troubleshoot. If I really want to get into all the nitty-gritty stuff, then I will use something like vRealize Operations Manager for Horizon. Right? That gives me like 6,000 metrics to look at, which is quite large. When it comes to connectivity issues, the things that we usually see, the Horizon client cannot connect. It could be network, could be something blocking the application on the client itself. If it's a full client, maybe there's a firmware update pending. Maybe the client's too old. Maybe using a Terra 1 client to try and connect to a Horizon 7.2. Yeah, that won't play happy, right? Login failures. Number one cause for login failures, bad password. Without fail. User swears, I put in the right password. And they've done it 20 times in 3 seconds. Yeah, you've just locked your account out. Let me unlock it for you. Now, henpeck your password, right? You have to. I'm horrible at typing my passwords, right? So that's probably our biggest common one. Black screen we talked about. Poor quality display. That can come from low bandwidth. The reality is if you try to save on bandwidth, that's going to have impact other places, right? It's a trade-off. Yes, PC over IP and BLAST are great protocols. They do lots of wonderful things, but there's always a trade-off for things that you do. If you let PC over IP do its normal thing, it sucks the whole bandwidth and does everything with it. You get wonderful performance. But you need to share that bandwidth with about 3,000 other people. So that means we knock the performance down, flattens PC over IP out a little bit, which means potentially performance could go down, right? It's finding that sweet spot between the two of them. Randomly disconnected sessions. That can come a whole variety of things. The biggest cause that I've seen this for is one of two things. First one, the connection servers are underpowered, for lack of a description. There's too much fighting for resources. The one place I saw it, they had the connection servers on the exact same ESXi host as the 2,000 desktops. And those ESXi hosts only had like 128 gigs of memory. Not surprisingly, I have never seen the most colorful memory map before until I saw that. I was like, ooh, look at the colors. They said, well, we were told this was okay. I said, no, it's not. They kept dropping connections because there was not enough resources to create the sessions, right? The other thing is poor network quality, right? Usually Wi-Fi is the biggest culprit for this type of stuff, right? User connects in, gets dropped. Connection gets dropped. There's ways to sort of trick PC over IP in particular to allow that connection. It's what I call creating white noise in the background, and that is the session floor option, right? So you can always set a small session floor to keep that connection live. Who here has ever seen this screen? I hate this screen with a passion, because the part that I hate is the last part where it says, please try connecting again or contact your system administrator. Users don't try again, they just call you instead, right? This can happen for a number of reasons, but the number one reason I've seen is people connecting into the desktop from vSphere and forgetting to log out, thus making the desktop not available, right? It counts as a session. So it's really important. Make sure that you're not logged into the user's desktop when they're trying to actually log in. Make sure there's enough desktops. Maybe it truly is saying there's not enough desktops. I've run out, right? Someone did not tell you the right number, right? Or maybe, and I've seen this, maybe the desktop was powered off and they're waiting for it to come up again. We get this message because the agent isn't actually communicating, right? So in some cases, yeah, wait 10 seconds and try it again, right? You can check in Horizon to see the state of the desktop that they're trying to connect to and be able to say, you know what, that it's coming up. Give it 5 seconds, give it 10 seconds, go grab a coffee, come back. It should be good at that point, right? Now, in some cases, it could be that the agents decided to have its own little lunch break and not respond to anything. I find the old-fashioned just reboot it and it'll be fine seems to be a good solution to it. Agent not communicating with the broker. Quite honestly, some of that could be just, it's coming up. Give it a few seconds, right? Or, as I said, it's gone for lunch. Stuck at the desktop login screen. This one's actually a known issue. With Windows, you can actually have that login message option where it gives, it's what I call the legalese. You're entering a private system. We'll take your firstborn, your secondborn, and your thirdborn if you do anything bad. Turn that off. This will break SSO, right? Do not use that login message window for that. Use the one we provide in Horizon, Right? It's a known issue. Do not use the default Windows 10 message, welcome type of message screen. One of the things I sort of hated about Horizon was that it generated lots of alerts and stuff, but it actually never told me about it. I had to dig through the system to actually see that there was an issue. It would be nice if Horizon said, by the way, did you know that there's this issue going on? So our engineers, Chris Halstad actually, he's done a few sessions this week. He created this. You have to have the event logger working, the event database itself actually up and running, and it will actually generate SMTP alerts to let you know, hey, did you know that this issue happened? User tried to log in and there wasn't enough desktops. Sweet. I don't have to wait for the user to call. I'll get the message before they call. Desktop performance. Where do we see our issues? So the most common areas that we see issues, storage I/O will probably continue to be a common issue we see as long as we have Composer and link clones, which will probably be for a while yet. Right? Because instant clones are only available at Horizon Enterprise and not everyone has a Horizon Enterprise. Keep in mind, if you're using link clones, the replica itself can generate upwards, well, not just upwards, but beyond 30,000 IOPs of read. The individual link clones themselves, when you do things like refresh or recompose or rebalance, easily each of them anywhere from 200 to 500 IOPs of write. Try putting them on the same storage and see how happy it is, especially magnetic drives. SSDs, it's not too bad, right? So storage I/O can still be an issue with link clones. This issue is actually one that used to be in the top 10, used to be number 1, and it's disappeared off the top 10, right? So designing your storage properly for your environment makes a huge difference. Memory contention, CPU contention, depending upon the environment you're using and the type of use cases you have and workloads you have, you may see one but not the other. A lot of environments I've seen, memory's been okay. CPU they have oodles of. Other environments I run into, they've got oodles of memory, and for some reason their CPU sucks. This depends on how you've designed your ESXi hosts. But watch for that, right? And network issues, right? One thing to keep in mind, protocols like PCORP and BLAST, they do use UDP. They can be caught by the switches and treated like what we call garbage protocols, which means we'll just drop all the packets. Treat them like they are a first-class citizen. Put them right behind voice over IP in the class of service or quality of service, right? It's important for your end users to be able to keep those connections going. So keep those things in mind for that stuff. When it comes to looking for these issues, vCenter is your friend. vRealize Operations Manager is your friend. Right? ESX Top. Who here is using ESX Top? Who's afraid of using ESX Top because it's command line? You won't break anything, I promise you. It's a great tool. And I'll point out some stats to sort of keep in mind. So you could have those tools. You can also use a lot of other third parties. Many of them are here this week. When it comes to CPU, cluster host utilization, generally we say 90%. I actually personally put it down to 80%. You need to make sure you have enough space for failover in case something bad happens. And it will happen, right? So make sure there's enough CPU to account for that failover happening. Percentage utilized, how much are we actually utilizing in that environment? And percent ready. Percent ready is my favorite one. I've actually seen an environment, I swear it was 25% ready. And they were happy as clams. They thought the environment ran great. I ran into another environment, they had 0.5% ready. And they were losing their minds. Right? So it will vary. Some of it will be how well does the application detect the percent ready, how long is it waiting to do something, how sensitive is it to waiting to do something. As a general overall rule of thumb, anything that goes above 10%, you should be concerned. Now I'm not talking about spike, I'm talking about flatlining or raised lines. Right? When you start seeing raised lines and it continues to go and keeps going up, that's when you want to get worried. Sorry? Let's talk offline about that one. So it's a little bit of a trick. The question was how did percent ready and co-stop sort of work? And that relates to, of course, multiple CPUs, etc. So that one will take a lot longer than the time I have up here. Host utilization, oh, sorry.
Would you look at that in Horizon or vSphere to see
vSphere. That'd be vRealize Operations Manager. Yeah. Horizon itself has limited visibility into the resources of what vSphere sees. So, yeah. Memory utilization, try not to get above 85% utilization. Actually try to keep that, again, lower than that value, right? The thing you want to watch for is things like swapping and ballooning. And ballooning in particular is going to be the big trigger point, because that means I'm taking from Peter to pay Paul, kind of thing. It's not a good scenario to be in. So we want to watch for those ones. Storage, and it's funny, someone came to me and they told me that the stats are wrong on this one. They're right. Your disk latency, 25 milliseconds, should be below that. The disk device average and kernel average, I'd actually make it even less than 25 milliseconds. It really should be maybe 1 or 2 milliseconds. Anything above that, you should start to worry. That indicates the kernel suffering or the storage array suffering, one of the two, right? So the combined average, which is what we get our Q average from. Yes?
So I'm assuming when this slide deck gets released, you're going to fix that?
Yeah, I will.
We're going to be able to show that to the customer, and they're going to say we don't...
You're going to get a PDF. You're not going to get the slide deck.
Well,
yeah.
The PDF will have that.
Yeah, I'm going to fix that. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's not right. So, yeah, I'll definitely fix it before we send that out. As I said, optimize your images. So apparently our engineers do not have enough time on their hands, or have too much time on their hands, rather. And so they make these little snippet tools to help address an issue, right? The most popular downloaded tool that is out there is this one, the the OS optimization tool. I've heard recently that they're actually going to add in some templates specific for things like HIPAA and PCI, so that those are ready for those environments. But you can also create your own templates from this. You can remote scan systems. You can do local systems if you want to, a whole variety of things. Who here has actually used this tool? Well, it would have been easier for me to ask who hasn't used the tool. For those that haven't, download it right away. Yes, close enough, yeah. Our location for logs, where are we collecting our logs from? vSphere, vSAN, the endpoints themselves, Horizon, Unified Access Gateway to Connection Server, Composer. Oh, then I have the user environment, so whatever I'm using to manage the profiles and such. App volumes, if I'm using app volumes or applications in general. All my applications themselves, including SaaS and mobile apps. Identity Manager. And then, of course, we also have vRealize Operation Manager for Horizon, vCenter, Database, Active. Wow, that's a lot of places to collect logs. Right? That is the one challenge with Horizon. Everyone says Horizon's easy. I'm like, yeah, until you have to troubleshoot it. That's a whole different thing. So there are 2 KB specifically that can help with log levels and log locations. Right? These are definitely ones you want to keep handy so you can find those. Or you can save yourself some headaches and get a little tool called vRealize Log Insights, and it will actually take all of those logs and put them into one location and make it easier for you to be able to troubleshoot across a whole variety of pieces, if you will. All right. Has some nice search functions. You can save searches, save tags, etc. So definitely something you want to take advantage of. So a few things. If you want to get more of this, we do have a troubleshooting class. It's 5 days. It's 50% labs, 50% talking head, but it goes through performance, optimization, and troubleshooting. It was my personal baby to get this class out. So that's definitely out there, and of course, here in the lounge. So I hope this has helped you a little bit, giving you some ideas and stuff. Thank you again for coming here on the last day even, and safe travels back to wherever home is. So thank you.